I never thought I'd be the guy standing here telling a story like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I'm still trying to process how everything fell apart in just a few hours. I was engaged to Lisa for about a year. We met in college, and honestly, she seemed perfect at first, beautiful, smart, charming. Everyone loved her, and I thought I had found my soulmate. But lately, I'd started noticing things that didn't quite add up. Small stuff at first, her phone buzzing constantly, little lies about where she'd been, odd late-night texts that she'd quickly dismiss as work stuff. Little things that I told myself I was overthinking. Then came the engagement dinner. It was supposed to be a celebration, a big family gathering. Lisa was acting weird that night, distracted, tense, almost aloof. She was smiling to everyone else, but I could tell that smile didn't reach her eyes. She kept excusing herself to the bathroom, and when I'd catch her, she'd always say she just needed a break, that she was tired. Nothing out of the ordinary, or so I thought. I was so caught up in the moment, trying to enjoy the night, too. Pretend everything was fine. We just set the date for our wedding and I was trying to be happy, but inside I had this gnawing feeling I couldn't shake. After the dinner, I went back to our apartment, the place we'd been sharing for months now. I was exhausted, but I kept replaying the night in my mind. Something was off. I'd been about to go to bed when I noticed my phone buzzing on the table. I usually check it, just a habit, I guess. It was from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick it up. There was a message. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Love you." My stomach dropped. The message was from Lisa's phone, but I knew it wasn't her. I looked closer. The message was from someone named Mike. My mind went into overdrive. Who the hell was Mike? I scrolled through the messages and there were dozens, flirty, suggestive, outright sexual. They weren't just "I miss you" texts, they were explicit. I felt like my world was crashing down. I'd trusted her completely. We'd been planning a life together, and now I found proof she'd been cheating on me. Lisa had always been bitchy when I confronted her about little things, but I never thought she'd lie outright about something as big as this. I remember feeling this sick, heavy weight in my chest. I went to bed that night pretending to sleep, but I couldn't close my eyes. I felt betrayed, humiliated, like I'd been played for a fool. And the worst thing, I just knew, this was only the beginning of what was going to be a very long, very complicated mess. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. The night before kept looping in my mind. Lisa's secret texts, her fake smiles, the way she'd lied about everything. I didn't sleep at all. I just lay there pretending to be asleep while my brain spun out all the possible scenarios. Part of me wanted to believe it was all a mistake, that maybe she'd just been talking to someone harmless. But the evidence was right there, staring me in the face. The messages, her evasiveness during the dinner, her weird behavior. All signs pointed to one thing: she'd been cheating on me. I got up, trying to act normal. But I couldn't. I felt like I was walking around in a fog. I brewed some coffee and sat on the balcony, staring out at the city, trying to gather my thoughts. That's when Lisa came out, acting like nothing had happened. She was dressed to go out, looking perfect, with that bitchy smirk I'd started to recognize. She told me she was going to meet up with some friends, that she'd be back late. I just nodded and watched her leave, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. I wanted to call her out right there, demand answers, but I knew that wouldn't help. Not yet. Over the next few hours, I decided I had to know the truth. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I started digging through her social media, checking her messages, her call logs. I found even more proof, hidden calls to Mike and more suggestive texts. I was furious. How could she do this? After everything we'd been through, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. It was rage mixed with heartbreak. I couldn't believe I was losing someone I thought was my future wife, because she was out there lying, cheating, screwing around during what was supposed to be the happiest time of my life. That's when I started planning my next move. I knew I couldn't confront her blindly, not without proof. But I also knew I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I decided I'd catch her in the act, or get her to admit it outright. I just needed a way to do it that would hit her hardest. I wanted her to realize that I wasn't some naive fool she could walk all over anymore. I didn't want to just walk away. They needed to know I was serious about not being played for a fool. So I started setting some traps. I installed a little recording device in the apartment, just in case I needed to catch her lying again. I also reached out to someone I knew from work, an old friend who had a way of finding out things. I wasn't planning to ruin her life, but I wanted the truth out in the open. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed to be ready for whatever came next. Because once I had the proof, I was going to make sure. She paid for this. I wasn't just going to walk away quietly. I'd be damned if I let her do this to me and get away with it. It was a terrible feeling, knowing she'd betrayed me during the most important moment of our lives. The engagement dinner, supposed to be a celebration, turned into the turning point of everything I believed in. And now I was stuck in this emotional storm, trying to figure out what was real and what wasn't. I knew one thing for sure: my life was about to change forever. A few days went by in this fog of anger and heartbreak. I kept up my surveillance, checking her whereabouts, listening for any signs she was hiding something. During that time, Lisa's behavior only got worse, more bitchy, more dismissive. She'd snap at me for the smallest thing, get defensive when I asked where she was, and I could tell she was on edge. I think she sensed I was close to figuring out something, but she didn't know I already had enough evidence to burn her down. One night, I decided it was time to confront her properly. I invited her back to the apartment early, pretending I had something important to discuss. When she arrived, she was all fake smiles and charm, like she didn't have a care in the world. I played it cool, but inside I was seething. I wanted her to crack. I wanted her to slip up. We sat down and I threw out the first bait. "Lisa, I know you've been lying to me about where you go, who you see. I found your texts with Mike." Her eyes widened for a second, just for a second, and then she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, so now you're jealous," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Please, Jake, get over yourself. I was just having fun. You're so insecure. It's not like I'm leaving you or anything. Just a little sex, a little fun. It doesn't mean anything." Her words cut deep, but I kept my composure. I knew this was just her way of denying everything, of trying to make me doubt myself. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I had enough. I told her I was done with her lies, that I knew about her and Mike, and I wasn't going to be played anymore. She looked at me, eyes cold and indifferent. "You're crazy," she said. "You're overreacting. It's just sex. Whatever, Jake. You're acting like I've committed murder or something." But her words felt hollow. I saw the guilt behind her eyes, and I knew she was lying again. I could tell she was trying to spin her way out of it to make me feel like I was the problem. That's when I realized I'd been giving her too much rope and she was hanging herself with it. I'd had enough patience. I told her to pack her shit and leave. I didn't want her there anymore. That was the moment everything changed. The fight that followed was intense. She yelled, blamed me for everything, called me paranoid, but I stood my ground. I told her she wasn't welcome anymore, that I'd had enough of her bullshit. She finally stormed out, leaving her bags behind. I was left in the silent apartment, staring at the mess she'd made. My heart was pounding like crazy. Part of me wanted to break down, but I knew I had to stay strong. I'd caught her in the act, and I'd finally made her admit she'd been lying. That night I felt a strange mix of relief and pain. I was free from her deception, but I also knew the worst was yet to come. In the days that followed, I started to process everything. The betrayal, the lies, the fake smiles at the dinner, they all added up to one thing. I'd been blind, but now I saw the truth. I realized I'd wasted so much time trusting someone who only cared about herself. But I also learned that revenge isn't about petty payback or hurting her. It's about reclaiming your dignity, about showing that you won't be played for a fool. I wasn't going to sit around feeling sorry for myself. I was done being the victim. From here on out, I'd focus on healing. But make no mistake, I was going to make sure she knew exactly what she lost. After she left, I stayed alone in the apartment for a while, just staring at the empty space where she used to be. My mind was a whirlwind: anger, betrayal, sadness, and a strange sense of clarity, all fighting for control. I kept replaying everything, trying to find some kind of peace, but it was damn hard. Part of me kept asking whether I should try to fix things, whether there was any way to save what we had. The truth was, I knew she'd lied to my face for months, maybe longer, and she'd done it during what was supposed to be the happiest time of my life. That kind of betrayal doesn't just go away easily. In the following days, I started to take stock of what I could do next. I knew I'd have to face the aftermath, tell my family, friends, deal with the heartbreak, and I also knew I had to get revenge, not in some petty way, but in a way that made her regret what she did. I wasn't planning to go full scorched earth, but I wanted her to understand she'd messed with the wrong guy. I wasn't weak and I wouldn't be duped again. I started working on a plan. I needed to make her see that I was stronger than her lies, that I was better off without her. First, I contacted my best friend, Mike. Yeah, the same guy she was cheating with. I didn't confront him directly yet. Instead, I wanted to gather more evidence. See if I could find out how deep this was. I knew some stuff about him, some shady things from the past, but I also knew I had to be careful not to blow up prematurely. I didn't want to ruin my own chances of revenge with some reckless move. I wanted it calculated, precise. I decided I'd keep quiet for now, let this play out a little more before making my final move. Meanwhile, Lisa kept trying to contact me, texts, calls, even some passive-aggressive messages on social media. I ignored her. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of pain, but I also knew I had to respond at some point. I started thinking about how to turn this whole mess into my advantage. I wanted to make her regret ever crossing me. I wanted her to see that I was capable of walking away, stronger than ever without her. That's when I decided I'd do something unexpected, something to make sure she knew I was serious about moving on and that her lies had consequences. One night, I took my revenge a step further. I'd been snooping around Mike's social media, and I found some compromising photos and messages, nothing illegal, just enough to make her look bad if I played it right. I also knew her weaknesses, her ego, her insecurities. I decided I'd leak some of the truth, carefully, to a few close friends and maybe even online. Not to destroy her completely, but enough to make her realize that her lies were catching up with her. I wanted her to feel the sting of betrayal. I wanted her to know that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I knew this wasn't going to be easy and I knew there would be consequences, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time, I was taking control. I was turning the tables. She played her hand and now it was my turn. I'd make her pay, not with violence, but with the kind of hurt that cuts deep, public, undeniable, and lasting. I wanted her to know that I could ruin her reputation if I wanted. But I also knew I didn't need to go that far, just enough to send a message. That's what revenge is about, taking back your power, and I was ready to do just that. The days that followed felt like a slow burn. Every moment, every glance, every message from Lisa fueled an almost obsessive need for justice. I kept up my plan, leaking little bits of the truth here and there, watching her reaction. The worst part was seeing her try to spin it, to act like she was innocent or that I was overreacting. She insisted she hadn't meant for things to get out of control, that she only saw Mike as a distraction, that she loved me but needed some excitement. Yeah, right. I've heard enough bullshit in my life, and hers was the kind that made me want to vomit. What really got to me was how she kept lying even when the facts were staring her right in the face. She'd send those fake apologies, try to make me feel guilty for overreacting, and then act like nothing had happened. I'd catch her in little lies, too, saying she was working late, then seeing her out with Mike at some bar. That's when I realized she was a natural-born liar and she'd always be one. But I wasn't just trying to punish her, I was trying to send a message. I was done being her fool. She could keep lying, but I was going to make sure everyone knew what she was capable of. One evening, I decided to go a step further. I set up a meeting with Mike, arranged to meet him at a downtown bar. I told him I wanted to talk, that I knew about everything. When we finally sat down, I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling. I faced him head-on, told him I knew about the affair, about how he was cheating with my wife. I looked him in the eyes and told him that I wasn't going to let this slide, that they both thought they could get away with it, but I was going to make damn sure they paid. He tried to deny it at first, acting all innocent, but I cut him off. I pulled out the evidence, screenshots, texts, everything. The look on his face when he realized I had the proof was priceless. I told him I didn't care what they did anymore, that I was done with her bullshit, and I was going to make sure everyone knew what kind of person Lisa really was. I made it clear I wasn't interested in revenge for revenge's sake. I just wanted her to see that she couldn't lie her way out of this mess, that her actions had consequences. That night, I left the bar feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. I'd confronted him. I'd shown her I wasn't some naive fool, and I'd taken control of the situation. But deep down, I knew I was scarred. Her betrayal had cut so deep that I didn't think I'd ever be the same. I was angry, yes, but also hurt in a way I couldn't quite describe. The lies, the fake smiles, the way she'd looked me in the eyes and lied, that was the part I kept replaying. I wondered how she could be so damn manipulative, so utterly selfish. Now I was at a crossroads. I knew I could keep digging, keep exposing her, or I could finally accept that some things can't be fixed, that some betrayals run too deep. But one thing was clear, this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about reclaiming myself, about making sure she knew she'd lost something priceless. Because trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. And I was tired of being the fool. From this point on, I wasn't just going to walk away, I was going to make her regret ever crossing me. The final blow came unexpectedly, but it felt like a long time coming. I had spent days orchestrating my comeback, testing her reactions, making sure she understood that I wasn't just a pushover anymore. The last night she came back to the apartment, expecting to find me begging or pleading, I had everything set up. I had already leaked some of the proof to a few mutual friends, and I knew her reputation was already starting to crumble. She thought she could manipulate her way out of it again, but this time I wasn't playing nice. When she walked in, she was surprised to see me sitting in the middle of the living room, calm but cold. I told her I'd had enough, that I knew everything, the texts, the affair, the lies she'd been telling herself, that she was smarter than everyone. I told her that her bullshit was finally exposed, and she couldn't spin her way out of this one. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I was done, done with the lies, done with her, and done pretending I didn't see who she really was. She started to get defensive, throwing out her usual line of "I love you. It meant nothing, and you're overreacting." But I didn't let her have the upper hand anymore. I told her I knew she'd been sleeping around behind my back with Mike and probably others too. I told her I had the proof, the recordings, the messages, everything. Her face drained of color, and her facade of bitchy confidence cracked for a second. That's when I saw real fear in her eyes, because she knew this time I wasn't holding back. I told her to pack her shit and leave permanently, that she had burned her bridges and that I wasn't going to be a part of her lies anymore. She tried to deny everything, but at that point I didn't care. Her tears, her protests, her fake apologies, they all sounded hollow. I felt nothing but cold resolve. Because I had finally taken control, and I was going to rebuild myself from the ashes she tried to leave behind. As she left, I watched her walk out that door, her face twisted with anger and regret. I felt a strange sense of relief, mixed with a lingering heartbreak. I'd been betrayed at a level I never thought possible, but in some twisted way I had reclaimed my dignity. I learned a harsh lesson about trust, about how some people are capable of so much deception, and about the importance of standing up for yourself. I realized that revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about proving to yourself that you're stronger than the betrayal. Now, I'm focusing on healing, on moving forward. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. I've learned I'm capable of much more than I thought, more resilience, more strength, more clarity. And if there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Never let anyone make you feel small or unworthy. Trust is fragile, but your worth is. Stand up for yourself, even when it hurts. Because at the end of the day, the only person you truly owe honesty to is yourself. And I've finally done that.